Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and it's been 7 days since I covered a pretty wild story on YouTube, one that involved another content creator known as Mamamax. Now, since then, it's been quite an explosive, trending topic with multiple videos coming out on the daily, many even from channels that I am very good friends with, channels like Oompaville, Noxtaku. A lot of content creators, even some that I've worked with on this project, have made follow-up pieces regarding this situation. Now, for those of you who don't know and haven't watched the previous video that I made, this is a story about how a YouTube content creator known as Mamamax, who is typically known for his very artsy YouTube projects, has actually been known very recently for producing content where he hunts questionable people on the internet and apparently brings them to justice. It's come out that none of his actual investigations appear to have any form of reality to them, and some of the people that he claims to have arrested have never actually been arrested. This is a situation where a content creator partakes in producing content that is all about taking down some of the most evil people in society. And unfortunately, those evil people, whether it be for this person's content and their sake for entertainment value, none of this stuff appears to be real, and the people behind this that we thought were arrested, for the longest time, I gave the benefit of the doubt, weren't actually gone arrested. So I wanted to follow up on this situation because a lot of things have happened, okay? So I guess for today's video, we're kind of going to go through piece by piece by piece by piece by piece and call it a day. So another quick summary. For anybody who's following this, Mamamax produced a series of videos which have since been removed where he started to cover a vampire werewolf cult, okay? Now, when he produced his vampire werewolf cult, it was basically encompassed in a group of videos where he talked about artificial intelligence, misinformation, cult dynamics, how influencers like me and your favorite content creator are actually cult leaders in of themselves, or at least exhibit cult leader-like mentalities. But ultimately, at the end of this, he pinned some very serious allegations on a private individual known as Cade, and he alleged that this person was a human trafficker, violent sex cult leader, and a werewolf cult leader at that, and effectively there were hundreds upon hundreds of minors that were victimized. Unfortunately, this whole situation blew up in Max's face because he failed to provide adequate evidence and instead decided that he was going to pressure a lot of his former friends like me and other content creators into pushing this topic to the average audience and basically signing on these allegations with him. Now, after extensive research from everyone's end, it turns out that the situation is not as hard-hitting, at least as Max has presented so far. Since then, tons of people have gotten involved, entire leaks have occurred, and this situation so far remains unresolved. Now, Max has done one thing that I can actually respect in this situation, which is staying completely quiet, and at least for now, and making sure that law enforcement is getting involved in this situation of him basically leading the charge on hunting down who he believes to be a bad individual should face some police justice. And whether justice will be faced, whether Max has tainted this case beyond belief, is yet to basically be known, all right? But this is the kind of situation that we're actually sitting at. It's a wild, wild situation, but again, that's a quick summarization of it. If you want to know more, you can watch my video, you can watch Nicholas Diorio's video, you can watch videos from Oompaville, who has covered this topic as well. But again, let's go into a few more things. Since then, Max actually made a video where he responded on privately with his Patreon, where again, he quadrupled, octupled down onto the situation and claimed that powerful forces were shutting him down. Now, I don't know how powerful of a force I am, but no one is claiming to shut Max down. If anything, his channel is still active, but he has since removed those allegation videos regarding this vampire situation. The only thing, as far as my recording right now, is him keeping a few shorts still up. Now again, ladies and gentlemen, may I remind you, when you're alleging serious claims against somebody, especially if they're private, before you catch a massive defamation lawsuit on your hands, or worse, ruin an actual case where there could have been some really nefarious things going on, you gotta make sure the evidence you present is solid, corroborative, and paints a proper story. Max failed to do any of that. And because of this, because of his public persona, he's dragged a lot of private individuals into the public eye, and this is entirely his fault. Now, since then, there have been a few things that have come out that I wanted to address. For instance, this post I saw, which shortly after the video that I produced had come out, where Max, in a private evidence Discord server, which has since, from my understanding, been deleted because it was leaked by Max failing to have proper OPSEC and letting anybody jump in by socially engineering themselves. In this, he types, "At everyone, Spencer and I," Spencer being his lead witness in this vampire sex cult case, "are considering a class action lawsuit against Mutahar for breaching our non-disclosure agreement, inciting harassment on live streams, defamation, and causing emotional distress. He's extremely rich, so the lawsuit seeks $1 million in damages to be distributed between all of you." Now, when I first read this, most people would think that I would do the laugh like, but I did not laugh. This is a former friend of mine, and honestly, this is probably one of the most painful things for me to read, because this is somebody that I sat down, had a drink with, had a talk to, gave a heart-to-heart to, and now, within 24 hours, I've basically realized that this person wants to effectively sue me for a large chunk of money, okay? An obscene amount of money. Why? Because to me, all this appears is all I ever was to this man was an extremely rich friend who had enough social media clout for him to piggyback his stupid case off of. This, to me, is quite possibly one of the worst, internet betrayals I ever had. And if anything, it's the one thing that has pushed me severely away from everybody on YouTube in the last week or two. I really feel like I have no friends on this platform. And I know that's dramatic of me to say, but reading this kind of stuff is just incredibly painful. You have to be in this personal situation to see this. Now, when I read this, I actually did confer with my lawyers, and what's funny is when we talk about the non-disclosure agreement, there was no solid non-disclosure agreement, at least one that was notarized by legal parties. So my lawyer said that I have really nothing to worry about. And when it comes to inciting harassment, defamation, and causing emotional distress, I would say that I have been very cordial, nice as I can be reasonably in a situation like this. Now, one of the other things my lawyers at least relayed to me is reading the word "he's extremely rich, so the lawsuit seeks $1 million in damages" is quite possibly one of the biggest mistakes you can make when actually threatening litigation. Because this is what a court will look at and say, this is why you're actually hitting them, because you just want a payday. Now, when you also read the words class action lawsuit, this isn't a class action situation. This is another example of Max utilizing ChatGPT for legal advice when ChatGPT has been known to get dumber, and you can look up the litany of lawyers that have used ChatGPT and been laughed out by judges imaginable. So later on, it says all you would have to do is testify against him, particularly regarding his actions, not speaking to any of you about the evidence and the impact his behavior has had on you, which is materially false. I have actually spoken to Spencer and the other victims in this situation, some of them privately, obviously. I don't like to make a public case of something that is ongoing. Spencer has agreed to be the lead plaintiff, and I'll do all of the hard work. How can you have a plaintiff in a class action lawsuit? Wouldn't it be a representative? Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm also a little smarter than ChatGPT, which just Googles information, I would say. Let us know if you're interested. This could have a huge impact on the case against Cade. Now, when I read this, I was like, what? One of the actual users here said, "Dude, no, can this stop?" Again, even the people on the server, and from everything that I've been told privately, were not okay with any of this. So even Spencer in this situation writes, "I think this is important personally. Muta has breached terms of the NDA and his actions have caused cyberstalking and harassment. And this is dangerous. If he doesn't learn, what stops him from doing similar in the future in relation to other cases? I agree with waiting for blank, though just in case, if it is plausible, Muta should be held accountable. His behavior is disgusting. My behavior on reaching objective truth is in fact disgusting, which I find really disgusting." And of course, Max here, like a dog following his leader, writes agreed. And of course, Max dangles a $1 million payday in front of these bereaved individuals as if it's going to help their case. Yeah, imagine involving survivors in a totally separate legal case that really doesn't have anything to do with them. Do you really want to put people through that kind of trauma? Like, Jesus Christ. Look, and I'll fully go on here. Max has considered that I'm extremely rich. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I'm not like Bill Gates or anything, but considering these are actual victims and they're going through some serious issues against somebody that they're against, I am at least here to provide whatever financial support I can reasonably give to these victims if they want to pursue any form of legal work that they need, whether it be for travel, whether it be to help get a legal thing done, whatever I can provide, I'm there. As offensive as I have seen this, I just want to make it very clear. If there's actual malfeasance that has gone on, I want to be here to do the right thing. And here's the thing about the situation. Neither Max or nor I nor anybody on YouTube is a law enforcement professional. All we can do is provide emotional support, liaison to help these individuals who don't really know the way of the world to start speaking with lawyers and law enforcement agencies. And if at times we can provide financial support reasonably, we can do that, which is about all a YouTuber should do. Max was not actively working with lawyers or cops or anything of that nature. Looking into this situation, I have spoken to actual people who have a background in law enforcement, and given that there are eyewitness testimonies, and maybe not in, like the insane amounts of evidence that people were like bringing up, because you have, corroborating testimonies, you have similar testimonies, nothing stops Max and these people from getting in front of a police officer or, getting in front of any law enforcement agency and at least requesting some sort of arrest, getting an investigation started. But that's a totally different thing. Now, one of the things that ended up actually coming out of this situation that was a little surprising, at least to me, was one of the editors that Max had hired, Angry Slug in this situation, decided to be a turncoat mercenary and basically leave Max, leak out a bunch of things, including a 50-minute recording session where he actually had a piece of Max's video where he was going and ripping on other YouTubers. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is one that I don't really believe the full, severity of. I think that Max is playing a character, but what's interesting to me is this clip that you're about to hear.
But I am being the nicest I could be. I could literally cancel you, Charlie. I could literally cancel you, and I choose not to. It's true, though. It's the truth. I'm the friggin' pedo hunter. Just doing my best out here. I told the survivors I would not let them down.
And let him down he has, because unfortunately this case has been made a giant media circus of on the internet, which again should never have been the case. Now, one of this clip that I played to you was literally him mentioning this infamous clip floating around where he's like, I could cancel you, Charlie. Charlie being Moist Critical, Penguin Zero on the internet, very large content creator, very popular, has an absolutely impeccable record on the internet. Now, this is a clip that really bugs me in a lot of ways, even if you had it completely out of context or if it had some attachable humor context to it. Look, at the end of the day, when you say that you can cancel somebody because you are a pedo hunter, yet you have 0 arrests, that literally puts two things into my head. Either you come up with some random BS evidence and basically ruin somebody's life, or you have evidence and you've just been sitting on it waiting for a proper time to cancel somebody. None of this actually appears right. And by actually wearing this pedo hunter badge and chasing people out on the internet, you have to be really careful with the kind of allegations that you make. For Max, his entire persona on the internet is centered around the hyper-violent Hotline Miami aesthetic that he fails to actually understand the deep meaning behind. But again, with Max in this situation, it's a lot of LARPing versus actually getting things taken care of and done. Now, YouTube sting operations and chasing people on the internet is not something that YouTube itself likes to endorse, unless, of course, there is an involvement of law enforcement agencies. Now, one of the most infamous people on the internet, Alex Rosen, who was basically responsible for the EDP 445 sting, was recently praised by the Houston Police Officers Union for helping getting rid of actual predators on the internet, off of the streets. And that's because Alex works directly with law enforcement, and comparing him to the EDP situation, he's grown and actually has arrests under their belt. So in this situation, obviously, if you're going to be doing this kind of content, you gotta be doing it 100% right. And in this situation with Max, he turned it into more of a LARP than actually trying to do right by children, and again, the people that came to him to get this situation resolved. The other thing I wanted to talk about too with this whole Max situation is, honestly, the whole idea of hunting down people that are doing nefarious situations like this, and also putting in a bit of distrust in the law enforcement agencies is really weird to me. Look, I'm not going to say the law is perfect. Obviously, the law gets a lot of things wrong. But if you're somebody who's sitting on their ass and you want to be a keyboard warrior against some of the worst people in our society, then there are things you can do that tangibly helps law enforcement agencies. Look, at the end of the day, if you want to do right by the world, you gotta work within the confines of the law. Max, as far as my understanding is, he really goes after the vigilantism more than working with law enforcement, because he believes that law enforcement, as far as my understanding, they get a lot of things wrong, and this is why people get to walk free. In reality, people walk free because investigations like this are so mishandled. When you work with law enforcement, if you ever talk to a law enforcement agent, you would realize that there are evidentiary rules. There are rules on how to investigate people. If you break any of these rules, a halfway decent defense lawyer can always get the scummiest person out of the chestnuts, legally speaking. Which is why law enforcement takes time. They dot their I's, cross their T's, and after everything is said and done, they bring the hammer down, and that's why they have super high conviction ratings. Because they're not going to waste taxpayer money or their own time chasing after a dud case. They're going to make sure everything works, so when it's time to go to court over this, when it's time to go over trials, they literally come out winning every time. Now, if you want to help law enforcement or the FBI, you can do things like r/trace an object. This is something that I've shown you before, and this is something where you can literally sit down in front of your computer and assist law enforcement agencies by looking at illegal posts that law enforcement agencies put to the internet. For instance, right here, when law enforcement agencies post things like this is actually from an illegal image, right? What law enforcement does in this situation is crops out all of the illegal things. What they do is they keep what they want you to identify. So if you're somebody who wants to assist an Australian investigation and you recognize what this bed frame is, some of you watching may recognize it. This is something you can immediately identify, relay this to the Australian police, and it will actually help them investigate and put somebody nefarious behind bars. Same thing with this stuff. Like, this is a wall. They're asking you, do you recognize this wall, this room? Do you recognize this location just off this image? And they're basically banking on the vast majority of the internet coming together and somebody giving them a tangible tip. Now, to go back to this cult situation that Max failed to explain properly, one of the cult names, actually, when it came to this vampire werewolf situation, it seems like a lot of the information that has come out has painted this not to something as organized as, say, the Heaven's Gate cult or Shinrikyo. This is more similar to something like an ERP, an erotic role play, or you could say like a role-playing group of that nature, right? Between what seemed like at the time young adults. One of their only websites that I ended up finding was the Guild of Divinity, one of the item shops where they were selling like t-shirts which had some of these awful, terrible goddamn wolf designs onto it. But again, they also had YouTube channels, which, Freedom Speech, for instance, where they actually talked about, again, things like the Eon Order, the Guild of Divinity, and most importantly, ERP, which, again, as you all know, is erotic roleplay. And if you look at some of the actual comments, this is what YouTube should be interested in. If you're a law enforcement agent, you should absolutely get this account subpoenaed. Because again, the actual account itself here talks about this is for anybody who wants to be a supernatural. Do you have anything for werewolves? Any spells? Nah, B, we don't do goddamn spells. One of the comments is downright scary, where they're talking about, we are looking for USA girls, mostly in Georgia, USA. So again, these are accounts that need to be brought up, investigated, and looked at by law enforcement agencies, because there could actually be some serious evidence, I believe, hiding behind here that can cause some serious justice for anybody involved in the situation that feels that they've been wronged. One of the last things I wanted to cover too that really rubbed me the wrong way that I actually didn't mention in my previous video was one situation regarding Max's MegaUpload folder. Now, Max made numerous investigations where he actually covered numerous cases, and this error message that you're seeing apparently belongs to one of his Mega folders. Now, Mega is a file sharing service, and what Max had used this for was placing his evidence in these servers for people to view underneath his video by looking into the description, from my understanding. Now, the error message here is this folder or file was reported to contain objectionable content, such as CSAM material, violent extremism, or bestiality. The link creator's account has been closed, and their full details, including IP, has been provided to the authorities. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is an incredibly alarming message, and it's one where I didn't want to speculate, I didn't want to waste time. I'd even confronted Max about this. Now, I asked Max, something alarming popped up, where Max said, "Hey Muta, the drive contained information and evidence pertaining to predators, some of which included videos, photos where the predators appeared nude, which is why the drives were publicly available. Have you been keeping up with the servers? I've been jumping in and out, saw this, and it was alarming. I'm wondering if the legality is totally above board. This investigation dies if you store any possible illegal material on a private server. I know even if it's evidence, you submit the whole drive to the authorities in a physical format." And Max says, "We don't store anything anywhere. I told them I would not work with them if they did." And again, he asks if we could platform him on my channel or the Some Ordinary podcast. If the Mega is taken down, what exactly did they say? Usually those bans are delivered as a result of a fingerprint match. And of course, Max says this Mega pertains to previous videos. And there were multiple predators, like their nude photos of them, and videos of them as evidence for law enforcement. And the video he refers to me as is Mamamax's channel, mylol.apk. Now, the reason why this is a massive red flag to me is, as somebody that's covered situations like Trafficking Hub, I've explained to you guys time and time again how image platforms, video sharing platforms actually calculate illegal material on the internet. And it's not because there's somebody magical sitting behind a computer day in and day out looking through illegal material. It's not like there is a massive server somewhere where illegal images are stored in their original files. No, in most cases, illegal information is stored in hashes. Those hash files are then checked against other hashes of images, objects that you have on your local device or wherever you store online continuously, and if a hash gets tripped, which there could be false positives, but generally there aren't if you've read up on how YouTube CSAI match works, or Microsoft's Photo DNA. Both incredibly well tools, both incredibly free to use, and both designed to assist law enforcement and websites to stop illegal material from ever being posted in the first place. They all check hashes, okay? Literally fingerprints within picture files. And it can be pretty difficult to actually take these things down. Think of it like advanced, super advanced Content ID. So I decided to go to Mega's transparency, and I wanted to see exactly how they identify objectionable content. So usually how it works is a bunch of individuals report individual links. So individuals like me and you who find something shady on their platform, they hit the report button and it goes right to Mega. Now, in some cases, law enforcement agencies report, NGOs report, and the industry can report too. But as you can see, a vast majority, thousands of their actual reports are from actual users. Now, of course, when it comes to how they detect this, in fact, actually, the appeals are very interesting. When an account gets hit, they can appeal, but the appeals are so limited that I'm not joking. In certain quarters, they have literally allowed 0 appeals to go through. In fact, their highest appeals were 10 appeals, and this is obviously thousands of accounts being taken down. Very, very few accounts ever get reinstated, which I have mentioned is most likely because of a possible false positive. Look, Max's explanation really hurts me a lot because for it to make sense, he would actually have to have some of these illegal predators, if they have illegal images from them stored. What I'm getting at is Max's explanation here still rubs me the wrong way. Look, if you have somebody's nude photo or whatever, it's not by itself going to trip any hash. The only reason a hash gets tripped is because it got ran against a known hash in the FBI database, NCMEC, or Interpol. In fact, I'll let Mega explain how this works. In 2022, Mega commenced a new process to download the content of public links that are reported to contain illegal content such as CSAM to a server controlled by the New Zealand government. Hashes are calculated for each downloaded file and then compared to hash sets provided by Interpol and NCMEC. Details of files that match the hashes of illegal content are then passed to Mega so the files can be removed from any account that has imported the file from the original public link. Those users are given a final warning and the accounts are closed for any users who have on-shared the illegal content. This process resulted in the closure of 642,000 accounts during the 6 months to the 30th of September 2023. So yeah, they've shut down a lot of accounts, but in order for these flags to be tripped, you actually have to be matching against known files. So, who had those known files? And again, a mass majority of the actual questionable material falls under CSAM. There are things that fall under violent extremism, but a lot of that has to do with actual illegal videos of mass shootings that have been striped from all social media platforms, except a very few that have just kept them up as a last defiant pitch against freedom of speech. But that's a whole different story. Max told me that he was not in charge of the drives. It was someone on my team who would distribute the evidence I documented. I only linked the drives after everything was uploaded. So Max has said that somebody on his team was running those drives, and they were the people that were uploading this actual illegal content. So again, this borderlines on another issue that I have. When you're a YouTuber doing an investigation, you gotta do everything by the goddamn book. The fact that you even have people on your team that are getting law enforcement to investigate you over illegally acquired materials, which can land not you in jail, not just you, but ruin any case that you work on. Look, at the end of the day, the Mamamax situation has blown up to a level that nobody could have thought would happen. And Max is still working on a response, which I am down to see at any given moment. I know that while the bridge between us is burnt, the story that he's covering, at least to me, feels real. And it's one of those situations where seeing this situation blow up in the last 7 days in a very negative manner is just not okay. Look, there are real people that I believe have been hurt by this. And for that considering, I am giving my full support as much as I can. Whether that be emotionally, whether that be helping them liaison with actual law enforcement agents or lawyers, and providing whatever form of financial benefit that I can reasonably provide. That's all that I can do. Look, at the end of the day, this situation should not have blown up the way that it did, and Max should have known from the beginning that if he was going to make claims, he should have substantiated them. And now in a situation where multiple people disavow, tons of information has been leaked, the NDA holds no water anymore, people's lives could potentially be in danger. The only way to rectify this is, again, like Max is doing, stay completely radio silent, and now actually work with law enforcement. And all I can hope is none of this case has been tainted. I know that it has been, but hopefully things can be salvaged and repaired. But ladies and gentlemen, this is, again, just to follow up on the Max situation. I wanted to cover a few pieces of, things that have been asked of me. And I also wanted to cover a few things that I didn't get to in my original video. Hopefully the next time I talk about the situation, it's in a very positive light. But yeah, this is me, Mutahar, and wild stuff, man. But I'm out.